if you have something going on, like a one eye or, a one leg or someone, just basically someone tell you no, don't take no for an answer.
Guys, today we're joined by a bantamweight of the MMA world, Dre Miley. I'm a big fan of his work. I'm a big fan of his story. And hey, man, we appreciate you coming on the show today, share a little bit of your time with us. How's everything?
Everything's good. Training's going really well. I've been training a lot here recently. Been doing a lot of wrestling at the kids at Bearden here locally in Knoxville. So everything's going good. We're getting ready for state and ready to put it to them. So that's what I just got done doing. So that's why I was late to the our interview. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
man, no worries. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
We know
all
how it goes. It gets busy now during fight time and all that. I'm sure you got a lot of stuff to do. Um, and I was curious in asking you, man, sort of how has everything been? Has it just sort of been pedal to the metal lately in your life? Has been, grinding nonstop?
yeah, it's been a nonstop go, which is it's good for me because if I sit still too long, start going crazy.
Yeah.
So been a great thing to do that, keeping me busy and wrestling with the kids and, coaching them, helping them in their own journeys, and then coming back to the gym and helping out over here, helping out other up and coming fighters and getting my own training in. So it's been pedal to the metal. So looking forward to this.
For sure, man. I like to just get right into it, speak about fights, whatnot. But I gotta say, I'm a big fan of your story. I'm a big fan of anyone in life that's ever had to overcome any type of adversity, especially someone who makes something out of themselves preceding that. Your story is amazing. For those who don't know, you're obviously a very good MMA fighter. What makes it even better, of course, is you've been able to again overcome so much while being a fighter, which is so impressive. So I'd like to ask you, man, for those who don't know, would you be able to sort of tell us about how this whole journey sort of started for you? I think it was back in 2009, right? It was an incident that happened. Would you be able to, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So back in 2009 in January, I had a car wreck. I was riding a friend of mine and my little cousin and my old friend of mine's brother, and he was not paying attention to the road. He swerved and hit a tree. And the only reason why I got cut is because I kept two of the backseat people, which happened to be my little cousin and the little brother, from flying into the dashboard. So when I caught them using my left hand and I turned to my left, my eye just went straight to the dashboard and it cut it back to front. But that's how the wreck happened. After that, I was pretty deep into football. I had scholarships, I had offers and stuff like that. I was going to camps regularly. And once that happened, everything just fell apart. And I was like, I don't want to do anything else. I went to deep motor depression, didn't want to do anything. And it wasn't until, pushing from my family was like, hey, you need to go out and do something. And, looking up and finding UFC on TV, I was like, this looks fun. Because, grew up fighting with your cousins and, you always grew up roughhousing. That's what we did on a normal basis. We're always quick to fight. Um, I stumbled onto the gym after Googling it, and then rest is history. I've been training here for about going on 14 years now. So I started when I was 18 and I'm 31 now. So it's been a journey. It really has. It's been pretty cool. Never thought at this point that I would be as deep as I am now. So
Wow, incredible. And when did this happen? How old were you? You were like 19, 18?
I
This
was
incident?
17 happened.
17. Okay.
17 it happened. I turned 18. I had that shutdown period. About 18 years old, I had stumbled into the gym. I also had my first child at that point. It was a lot going on that year. I went to college for a little bit, came back home because it wasn't ready for me. Like I went through a lot within that 2 year span of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So
And I'm sure it's not an easy thing for such a young man to overcome, right? I mean, what would you say are some of the things that helped you get past that? Because I mean, I would think that without just by doing nothing, that's not something that you could really overcome mentally, right? That's something you got to work at every day, I would imagine, right? So, what were some of the things? I guess MMA, I'm sure was a big one, but was it family? Was it friends? Was it like reassurance, motivation from people? Like, what were the things that really put the train back on the tracks in terms of your life and goals and all that?
It was my family, it was my coaching here. I've been with, Eric for like 13 years, and he was one that
Yeah.
was like really keen on me doing this. Like, you can go pretty far. Optimism is something that I needed at that point, and I was motivated. And also, I get motivated by people being negative towards me. Like, I'm that point to where in my family, we're all like that. I have to prove you wrong. So the fact that you said I could do it, I'm like, cool, I'm on board with it. And it didn't really start kicking into high gear until, state of Tennessee told me I couldn't fight as a pro. And I'd already had at least a few amateur fights at that point. I was like, that doesn't make sense. I even fought for Tennessee. And it was like, no, you can't fight. And then next thing you know, my coach was like, keep pushing. We're gonna make this happen. So like having that constant chip on your shoulder was like, okay, I'm gonna show you that I can do it. And that I'm still having that chip on my shoulder, which, feeds into every single fight that I go into.
Do you think that's your biggest motivating factor? Like, oh yeah, they think I'm a one-eyed fighter. Like, keep thinking that. Like, I'm going to show you. Is that like number one for you, or are there other things that sort of light the fire even more?
That's probably the number one thing. Is like the fact that everybody's gonna come to that side. And I invite people to go say, oh, if you want to, come on this way. And then as it got, that's always going to be number one. And also, I have to prove people wrong. Period. You know, Even before the accident, I wasn't.
It was in your
pick-
nature already.
It was already in my nature because I was always the smallest. I was never, the biggest guy out there. Wasn't the strongest guy. I was the fastest guy, but everybody's like, oh, you couldn't do anything. So I always constantly had that proving my point. I can remember being in school with my mom, and I would come home and tell her, Mom, this dude's picking on me. Mom, this dude's picking on me. And she's like, I'm not gonna raise a punk. So you're gonna have to defend yourself. Either you defend yourself or you come home and me and you got problems. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not fighting my mom, so I'm gonna handle this. So I can remember getting in school fights all the time. Well, I would never pick them, but I would always be there to finish them. So it's always been a chip. And coming home some summers with my cousins, they would try to pick fights at me. So, and I was always willing to shut fights down. So it's one of those things that's always built into you. I have to prove myself no matter where it goes. So
I've heard you say before that everything happens for a reason. And I can appreciate that because I like to think everything happens for a reason as well, right? Like there's a reason for why it happened. It was either a learning lesson or something that had to happen for you to overcome it. Um, is that part of it? Does that sort of tie in with it, right? Because you said it happened for a reason. I mean, would you be where you are if you didn't have this chip on your shoulder? Like, if you don't have that fire of people constantly, because I would imagine, here's the thing, if that incident doesn't happen, you're not going to have as much people doubting you. There's people are going to say, oh, look, well, he's an MMA fighter and we'll see what happens, right? But I'm sure with that, there's always going to be doubters out there no matter what. So is that sort of what it is? Is that what the good that came out of? Is that the reason why it happened, do you think? Or one of the main reasons, like I needed this chip on my shoulder?
I think it is not necessarily something from me. I think it's something, and I'm very, very not very religious, but I'm a big believer in God, and I talk with God, I pray with Him, and I have a good relationship. I study all that stuff. I do believe that God made it to where I was appointed to it. Like He made it to where I have to make you different than everybody else because realize that you are the same, that you have a bunch of them. So God has to put something there to see how bad of a person you can be. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
God gives us, the hard battles to the strongest people.
Yeah.
And one of those things is that I have to give this to you because you look through the good book, there's always somebody that's going through some hard times and they always persevere through it. So that's what I believe. I believe God did it for a reason. He has reasons to why he does it. I never questioned it. And there was a time in my life where I questioned, like, why did I lose mine? Why did I do this? And then my coach put in perspective, was like, that's what God wanted. God wanted you to live this, travel this path because somebody needed something, somebody needed that push. They needed something. So that's just what it is. I just believe that that's what my purpose in life is just to prove people wrong. And I think that came from God.
And you did say it was a dark period right after it happened. So it didn't happen immediately. You didn't come to this realization overnight after the incident, right? And this is my last question on this before we move into the MMA stuff. Um, how long did it take you to realize this? Was it when you turned 18, you started going into the gym? Was it a little bit later after that? When did you realize, like, hey, this happened because it needed to happen?
Probably about 3 years ago.
Really? So
About three
fairly
years ago.
recent.
I did a lot of shadow work. My coach, he's a mentor. He's a wonderful human being. Eric does a lot of things for us fighters, not just for teach us techniques, but teaching us how to be better people. And for years, I was battling myself. It's like I don't know why I'm shooting myself in the foot. I don't know why I'm doing this. And so sitting down with him and talking with him, it made it click. I was like, oh snap! I am fighting with myself. I don't know why. It's like me wrestling with something that I don't need to wrestle with. So it's that type of thing. It took 3 or 4 years, but like, oh, okay, it's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to live this path, and you're supposed to inspire people. You're supposed to draw people near, and so on and so forth. So that's what I think. That's what I believe it is.
For sure, man. And do you have children?
I do. I have 3 boys. 3 boys.
I'm sure they could see what you've been able to do and say, "Hey, man, that's a hell of a story." It's a hell of a story written by my father. Maybe I could try to do the same one day. Be the best I could be. So I think there's a lot of good things that come out of it. That's why I like to touch on the everything happens for a reason factor. I feel like I've already been able to make up two big reasons why it happened, and I'm glad that you've been able to overcome it and look where you are today, man. Right? It's a great thing to see. I'm so happy for you. Um, Now, listen, speaking of MMA, because I did say we were going to get into that, and that's what we like to talk about on this channel. I
Right.
saw that you had a fight, David Lewis. How the preparation been going, man? What are we like a little over 2 weeks away? We're pretty close. So how are you
Yeah.
feeling?
Just another day at the office. I don't know what fight camp is. Put it that way, because you're always training, you're always doing things, you're always pushing, always pushing. I'm always grinding. I'm always doing something. So I'm not necessarily in fight camp. I've been plugging along. I've been sharpening my tools. It's just now I have a person to actually try these things out on. And this guy is a guy that I've known for years. We've trained with each other before, and we sparred with each other before. As one of those weird things. It happens. You fight the guy that, at one point was your friend. Sometimes you fight your friends. This guy is just, I don't know what it is. The best way I can explain to you what he is like an old flame that refuses to let it go. Like they refuse to move on. They refuse to let things go. So basically, he dogged out my teammates while we're cool. So while we're friends, he dogged out my teammates. He dogged out my coach. And I was like, dude, we're friends. Like, you do know I train with these guys. Like, you do know that this is who I'm with all the time. And, he said some things and I said some things and he was wanting to fight me then. I was like, it's not worth fighting over. It's just words. Just like, you're an idiot. I'm done being friends with you. Then a few years later, here we are getting ready to fight this, idiot. And, he's been all over social media talking nonsense. I'm ready to beat him up, ready to beat him up. So I'm hoping and praying for his sake. And I never really do this, hoping and praying for his sake that Bellator does call. Because if I do get in there with him, it's not going to be an enjoyable time for him. So it's getting to a point where it's annoying with him.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about the Bellator thing, but I want to ask because to be fair, I wasn't aware of this because I mean, full transparency. I kind of like to, learn about these things about the fighter myself. Like, I don't want to watch past interviews about you and then learn that and already know it and then ask you questions that I already know. I kind of like to figure it out here, right? React here sort of firsthand. So I didn't know that, right? I mean, when that happened, right? When the whole, I guess, beef happened between you guys, was it ever a thought in your head when he left, like, I might fight this guy one day and I'll really enjoy it? Like, has that ever crossed your mind at all? Or were you just like, nah, screw him. That's it.
I put him in my rearview mirror. I was like, I'm done with him. Like, there's nothing for me to even consider fighting. He's like, at that point, I was, fighting top people at that time. It was like I had just finished. I believe I just was getting ready to fight Jose Johnson, and I was like, why am I gonna? I'm not gonna pay attention to you. I'm fighting UFC guys right now. trying to get to that level, and you're still at 2-3. You've been in the game longer than me, and you can't fight because you can't make weight. So at that point, I was like, I'm done with it. And then when my coach, I said, I was like, hey, you gonna fight this guy because the guy before him said no. So I was gonna put that out there. And I was like, all right, I guess I got to fight him. I was thrilled that I get a fight, but at the same time, I'm like, I know this is going to be one of those headache type things where I have to deal with somebody that's, dumb. But no, it's crazy. It really is. I never thought I'd be fighting him because it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, Bellator is where I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get that Bellator fight. So if I need a tune-up fight in between then and he fits the bill, hey, there we go.
But you are surprised. You're like, you didn't expect to face him, right? Based on, because you said you had him in the rear view. You said that, you were facing UFC caliber guys already, sort of almost indicating he's almost, you feel like he's not at your level, right? I could almost sense it. And I don't, that's not a slight or anything, but you just feel like you've been facing better guys. You feel like you're a better fighter at this point. So was it a surprise? You're like, I got to fight this guy. Like, was there any of that?
I laughed whenever it happened. Like I instantly started laughing. I was like, no way. And then he's like, here's the picture. I was like, son of a gun. I was like, all right. I couldn't help
Yeah.
it because I know the times that me and him sparred and another teammate of mine, we would round robin because we're all the same weight. Me and my teammate had our way with him to the point where he was gassing and we were just laughing and cutting up to the point where me and my teammate were having conversations in the middle of sparring. So for him to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna beat you up," blah blah blah, it's like you couldn't do it out of the 3 times you came here. And this time he was, at least 2, 3 pro fights in, and I was just getting my feet wet in pro sparring or pro fighting. I think he had at least 2, 3. I was going on my second pro fight. It's like you like no, and then here we are. I'm 16 fights deep, and you're still at 5. So someone clearly has more combat experience than you do, and it's not smart. So
I mean, is it fair to say that you're not expecting the hardest of nights then? Have you been in there with this guy? You and your other training partner, you said you sort of maybe had your way with him. Maybe you're not all right, let me ask you this then. Maybe you're not expecting the hardest fight ever, but is the pedal still all the way down on the gas? Like, are you still training as hard as ever for this fight?
yeah, I'm still training hard for any fight. I don't care who it is. I make light of, with my words saying that, oh, well, I'm only fighting this guy, but at the end of the day, I'm still training hard because I cannot underperform myself in my previous fights. So I also have that thing where I have to outperform myself every fight that I get into. So I have to outdo this last one. So that's exactly what it is. I have to outdo myself, and I'm training. I'm doing things. I'm trying to do everything as close to perfect as possible. So no, and you know, it's a fight. It's a fight. Do I think he's on my level? No, but do I think he's the most dangerous person I fought? Yes. And I'm not
Really?
saying
Okay.
I don't think he's skill wise. No, by no means. Technique wise, he's not the most dangerous person. I do know that he's the most dangerous person because he has nothing to lose and he has everything to gain. So that, kind of adds pressure, but then it doesn't because it gets me excited. And I'm like, okay, now I have to really be on my P's and Q's. So is he the most dangerous fighter that I faced? No. Is he the most, crazy one? Yeah, absolutely, because he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And those are usually the ones that get people out of there. So I train hard. I prepare like I'm preparing to fight, in Bellator. I'm training like I was going on the contender series. I'm training hard. So, no, preparation doesn't change no matter who's on the bill.
That's interesting. And what I kind of like about what you just said is you almost seem to find new forms of motivation to get you up for the fight, right? Like you're saying, oh, I need to be better than I was the last fight. This guy's dangerous. He's a dangerous fighter, and that makes him a threat. I like how you're sort of keeping yourself level headed, like, hey, man, still a fight. There's still things on the line here. So I could appreciate that because it seems like a lot of fighters nowadays, they look ahead too much. And so I just, anytime you see somebody that's in the moment, not worrying about big opportunities ahead, that's good. You always like to hear that. So let's talk about Bellator, man, before we wrap this up. I guess what's sort of the deal there? Have you, because I know you said you're waiting on the Bellator thing to see how it plays out. And I saw a picture where you signed like a contract. So have you signed? Have you not signed? Like, what's the deal there?
So I've signed. My Bellator debut was supposed to be against Lucas Brennan, but
Okay.
something happened in the Connecticut Athletic Commission, and they wasn't absolutely clear. So I really can't comment on what happened. All I know is that some paperwork got misshuffled, or someone misread something, or something happened. But Bellator still honors the contract. They're like, you still have 2 fights. We're going to keep you under contract. We're going to give you a chance because I did everything to the book. Like as they asked for medicals, my medical, as soon as the contract was signed, my medicals was turned in the next 2 days. Like it was that fast. Blood work, all that was done. It was like, that's very professional. So we're going to keep you on, try to find people. So what I'm doing now with post and everything is picking fights, and I'm poking bears. I've had Lugo or Jornel Lugo say that he's ready to fight. Me and him has been talking back and forth for at least a year or so. I've been trying to get this fight for about almost 2 years now. So he's down, and CJ Hamilton is another guy who came up around here. We fought on the same card. He was the main event, and I was like one of the lower fights, but I've seen him fight forever. And I was like, I would like to mix it up with him. And, I've called out other Bellator people. I've called out Cass Bell, and Cass Bell said he's down. You know, all I want is just that opportunity to get in that Bellator cage, beat somebody up, and get paid for it. And then show people around the world that if you have something going on, like a one eye or, a one leg or someone, just basically someone tell you no, don't take no for an answer. This is basically what it is. That's what my ultimate goal is. Would I like to be world champion? Yeah, absolutely. That means I have to kick it in high gear, but I have to get there first. So
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like you're winning already? The fact that you just did what you said, right? You're doing things that a lot of people probably didn't even think was possible. Like, is that already a win in your book, regardless of you being a world champion or not? Because I would feel some assurance laying my head on the pillow at night, knowing that I went for it, no matter what the circumstances were. And I feel like that's what you're doing.
yeah, I feel like being a world champion is good, but at the same time, like you said, that inspiration to younger people, to the younger generation, to the people that's been told no, that is more important. Being
That's
that,
louder for sure.
yeah, because could I do it? Yes, I could totally do it. But at the end of the day, looking back, I was like, if I make it, that's just all that matters. I got signed. That's the happiest day, one of the happiest days of my life. And then just getting there to fight would be just another one. And it's just small victories at that point.
Yeah.
So
I was happy when I saw that because I think you deserve it, man. I think you're every bit as talented to be signed by Bellator and compete in Bellator, and I'm excited to see what happens. So the names you picked out, I mean, you're picking out specific names, right? Like you're not just saying I'll take anybody. What is it about those names? Is it that you appreciate their talent, you want to test yourself in there?
they're the guys that I'm eventually have to run to. Um, CJ, I was hoping to fight CJ on the regional circuit. That didn't happen. Cass Bell, I've watched Cass Bell. He's had like 5 pro fights. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm 15 plus fights in. Like, how's he getting a shot? Like, and watching him was like, I would wrestle you to death. Like, you wouldn't get none of that stuff on me. And then Lugo, I think me and Lugo would be another Jose Johnson fight. It
Oh,
would be,
that'd be a great fight.
yeah. And we're both for it. And we both had the same build, same type of things that we like to do. I've even called out Jalen Bates, and Jalen Bates will not. He've even said no, he doesn't want to fight me. So he said it. I posted the picture of it. He's like, no, I don't want to fight you. I was like, I'm calling out specific people that are close to my record. Hell, I've even called out James Gallagher, and he's not responded back
Okay,
to
so
it.
that's what it is. You want guys in Bellator's similar record to you. Wait, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense to be like, hey, Danny Sabatello or
Right.
Leon
Yeah.
Patrick Mix, I'm gonna fight you guys because then it looks unrealistic. I'm going for guys that are like, you're not cracked the top 10 yet. You're just scratching by. You're hoping for it. You give me one of those guys. Let me get one of those dudes in there. I'll gladly mix it up. Bryce Meredith, he just got signed. He's a 35er.
Oh yeah.
He's a. I would love to fight him too. I mean, it's really anybody in Bellator. I'm just ready to suit up and just like, all right, let's go to war. So I was ready to fight Lucas Brennan, and Lucas Brennan's a big old dude.
Oh,
But
he's a
then
beast. Yeah.
yeah, but then like they did a poll on that, and people were doing polls were saying that I was going to beat him. So I mean, there has to have some kind of merit of sitting there saying, "Well, this dude is actually pretty good." So the good Lord upstairs knows what he's doing, then I'd have to trust in his judgment as well as trusting my coach's judgment. At the same time, I'm not gonna stop making noise. So,
Hey man, listen, you don't want to just get thrown into the deep end. I appreciate it. But what I also appreciate is you're not just calling out some, like you're calling out some dogs now. So I do appreciate that. You want to get your hands dirty. So I think that's respectable, right? You're not looking for, like, you are looking for fights that make sense, but you're not asking for an easy ticket here, right? You're going to fight who you're going to fight, right?
yeah, because the way I look at it, you're a direct competition. If I need to get closer to the ultimate goal, which is get ranked and get to that title shot, I have to beat the people ahead of me. I
Mhm.
can't just be fighting people that's entry level. I can't be fighting here. I have to test myself against the best. I have to see how good I am. I have to see where do I fit at on that totem pole. And I believe that I'm a ranked guy. I believe 100% I could be top 10 guy in Bellator. I wholeheartedly believe that. It's just I need Bellator to believe it. I'm not sliding no Bellator fighter. I'm not sliding Lugo. I'm not sliding Hamilton. None of those guys. I believe in myself more than I believe in anything else. So that's just how I got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Dre, we really appreciate the time and ask you a couple more questions so we don't take up too much of your time. But thanks for coming on the show again, man.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. I see Bellator even before you got signed. It seems like there was a lot of interest, right? What is it about Bellator that was intriguing to you, that was appealing to you? Do you like the way that they run things? What is it about them?
When my buddy James Adcock, when he went there, we went there twice for him. And it's how they ran everything. And they didn't necessarily give you like you're an undercard guy and we treat you this certain way, and then they have their stars, and then they treat their stars a certain way. It was like everybody gets treated just the same way, no matter where you are on the card. They treated everybody like they were superstars. They treated everybody like that. And I'm just a corner man at that time, and they were having conversations with me, asking me how I was doing, if I needed anything, blah blah blah. If it was just nice, coming to that and like, man, this is really nice. This just feels like just like I'm at home.
Yeah.
And UFC is more so like, well, can you move the needle for us? It's like, well, no. Well, then you can't fight for us. It's like that's stupid. Why do I have to give another interview to get to your company? And Bellator is like, hey, your interview is fighting. Can you sell for it? Sure, but we're more concerned about you fighting. That's what really kicked me for Bellator. The fact that it's like a family and they care about their people. That's ultimately what's won me over.
So you wanted to go to a place where you feel like what's going to move you up the ladder more so is your actual skill as opposed to how viral you go, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, because and there's a lot of people who got signed by UFC here recently that they're just not good.
You
They're
know
just
what?
not.
There's a couple of names that I'm not gonna lie. I looked at them like, I don't know about that one.
There's a lot of guys where I'm like, you do not belong in the UFC because I would trash you. And it's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Um, I fought guys that they're in the UFC. I've trained with guys that's been in the UFC. And there's people that's on that Ultimate Fighter right now that I've trained with, and like they had nothing for me. So I was just like, come on, man. There's not much you can say to me anymore. That's an ultimate just overconfidence thing for me. So that's just how it goes. I would much rather my skills be shining than something crazy I did online, because now you have to live up to the expectation every single time.
Hey man, I can't knock that. I think that's a pretty logical way to look at it, honestly. Especially someone in your position. I think that's a smart way to go about it. Last question. All the fans of yours out there that appreciate you as the fighter, that appreciate your story as well, much as I do. Any messages, man? Like what can we expect for your MMA future? Because there's a lot of upcoming stuff that seems exciting.
Just stay watching. I don't know what God has planned, but God clearly has something big planned. And I'm sitting in a seat where I don't know where I'm going, but I'm trusting wholeheartedly. So I would just say, just keep watching. Hopefully, you see me in Bellator. I'm trying to get on that Hawaii card. I'm trying my best. I'm doing the best I can. I'm sharing. I'm poking. I'm doing things. So I just say, just keep watching the page and keep supporting me. Keep sharing my posts if you're doing that, and if you're not sharing my posts, please go share it on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Help me help you. So.
There it is, man. Hey, let me pinch the arm of Bellator a little bit. Like, come on, man. Get this guy on a card. Let's see him in action. He's ready to go. He's fired up. He's ready to take out some guys. So let's see it. I'm a fan of his, and a lot of people are. So, that's just a little message from me to Bellator. Now, as back to you, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for sharing the time with us. I'm sure you're a busy man. You got a fight coming up. We're gonna wish you the best of luck in that one, and we're looking forward to watching it.
All right, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely. All right, Dre. Take care.
See it, man.